Oh yeah, that's great.
It's a lot more formal than I was expecting, so it's lovely. Anyway, what I'm going to talk to you about today is a little bit of my role with QM and what audience research strategy and advocacy means, because it's a bit of a mouthful, and the project that Rosemary mentioned with Google Cultural Institute. So we'll kick off. So this is my background. I come from the entertainment industries, and entertainment worldwide is an exceptionally fast-growing industry. And when we compare that to some of the statistics that we've seen over the last 10 years with the museum and art gallery data, there are some lessons that I think we can learn from the entertainment industry. And that's one of my favourite quotes from Homer, so I always like to start with that. But essentially, this comes back to the idea that audiences want to be able to have a meaningful opportunity to engage, participate or contribute to the cultural experience in some way. And entertainment does that particularly well, which I'll explain in a little bit. But this is just kind of how I wanted to frame up where the strategic intent behind working with Google on their Cultural Institute program comes from. Because it is very important to take into that consideration how we let the audience define the terms of the engagement or the interpretive frame through which they're viewing the collection or the experience that is coming to a museum. So Google Cultural Institute has been around probably, I think it was launched in 2011, so about 4 years. And it started in Paris and London with the big the iconic museums, I guess you could say, and slowly they've been developing a new product which hit the market somewhere through 2013 called Google Open Gallery, which was not part of the formal Cultural Institute, but essentially used the same mechanism to allow any museum, whether it was a small museum out in a regional area or a big institution, to curate an online exhibition in the same sort of way as how the Cultural Institute worked. So when that came up, we jumped on it and signed up for a beta invite and just kept hounding them until we got access to it. And when we started to upload some of our collection, which I'll show you towards the back end of this presentation, we got a response back from their account managers in Paris saying, this is too good to be on Open Gallery, would you consider coming across as a partner for the actual Cultural Institute? Because at that time it hadn't launched in Australia. So we begrudgingly said, yes, okay, Google, we'll join your cool thing. Anyway, the basic premise behind why we wanted to be on the Cultural Institute is because of this ancient Greek word, which I'll explain, as essentially the dialogue that comes before a theatrical performance. So in ancient Greek times, there'd be this thing called proagon, which is essentially like a comedic debate between the chorus and the protagonists. It's a little bit like, the best way to describe it would be how Ferris Bueller always turns to the camera, kind of breaks the fourth wall and talks about the actual experience, talks to the audience. That's what proagon is. And the reason that that's foreshadowed by the footy show is because essentially what it does is it creates a dialogue that is easy to engage with, that assists the audience in the interpretation of the actual work. So the text that is a football grand final is made more meaningful by the fact that there's been a discussion about the players' form and the coaching decisions and things like that over the subsequent matches leading up to that, so that when you come, you're prepared and you have something that you can meaningfully say to your friends, like, oh, wasn't that a great example of a catch? I don't watch enough football. But that's proagon. And some of the projects that we experimented with in an attempt to try and get to this was Curators of Cool. So Curators of Cool is a project that I managed in 2012, and it ran over about, I think it was 12 to 18 months in the end, in which we got 5 curators who weren't museum-trained curators, who were from various disciplines, including interior styling, architecture, literature. So we had Benjamin Law, Sabella Court, and people like Paul Owen, who's a local architect, come in. This is Sabella. This is an example of some of the work that she was doing. So this was documented in a 6-part short, I wouldn't call it a mini-series, but I guess 6 short videos which we produced, which essentially talk through the curator's decisions behind the objects that they chose. So the framing was very loose. We picked 5 people who we identified as having significant established influence in a sociocultural space. So they're recognised as being influential because of their work. And we wanted to just let them loose in the collections, so they were allowed to browse and basically find anything that they thought was cool. And that was essentially the frame. Whatever you think is cool. So we were exploring the definition that they had for implying cultural significance onto an object, mostly through an aesthetic realm, but the videos unpacked that meaning about what the museum is and the role of a museum in modern society in a little bit more detail. And the objects that they chose were then showcased both on the floor in a physical micro exhibition, but then subsequently on the Google Cultural Institute. So you have a document of the process itself in the videos, and also the manifestation of that as an actual exhibition. So what we have now on the Cultural Institute page is a number of things, including just general items that are, we think, of particular interest and support the physical experience of coming to the museum, because they're objects that you would not be able to engage with in the same sort of significance in the flesh. Like in real life, you can't get as close to these Dodd collection cases or see the really exquisite detail of the arrangements, where you can see that online. Also, a nice side effect is we were able to get Street View team in from Google Maps to produce the museum view that you see there. So I think this is some of the glossy press shots that we had done when we actually launched it. This is not at all what it looked like. We didn't even use that camera. This is what it looked like. Oh, come back. This is Robert, and that was the little trolley that we used. It was like a full frame 60D that just rotates around and captures all the photos and shows you the perspective there of where we are in the actual museum. And that's us kind of hiding. There's a whole bunch of Easter eggs if you go through and look through the Street View. It's good fun. So what this enables people to do is obviously, I guess, get a bit of a preview for the museum before they come, and talking, like we were saying before, about the idea that people should come prepared with an interpretive frame that helps them engage with the experience when they're here is very important. And we think that Street View plays a vital part in that because it gives you a physicality, an experience of the physicality of the museum as well. So you kind of know the space before you even enter it. This is an example of how it's being used at Tate Britain. We haven't gone as far as this yet, mostly due to the amount of work that's involved. But you can see here the actual art pieces themselves. Where's my cursor gone? If they have more information attached to them, they have these little squares. And when you click on the square, it'll give you a little info card telling you what the work is, and a thumbnail of a photo, which, if you go into it in further detail, gives you the full description and item details and everything like that. That's important because when you come to the museum, you can actually compare objects that you might have found when you're looking through the galleries after the fact. So you can log on after, put them all together in a collection of your own and save that through the Cultural Institute's page. It lets you do those things. And like I was saying, when we first started with Open Gallery, this was one of the first images that we put up. This is an image taken by our scientific imager, Jeff Thompson, on his Hasselblad 4D, and I think the photo itself is a combination of 27 images that have been focus stacked. So they take the in-focus part of 27 different focal depth images and put it all in together into one super sharp image. The file size, I think, is something like 1.7 gigabytes just for that photo. And Google at the time, when they were launching the Cultural Institute, had a product offering called Gigapixel, and we kind of said, well, we're already doing it, so thanks but no thanks. And the reason it's really interesting is because they have these zoom tools in here as well. So you can, this is impossible to do with the naked eye, but you can do it online. So what we're hoping to do is have enough of this content available that it can supplement a physical exhibition in a way that when you do the physical exhibition, you don't have to try and jam everything in. You can say there's more online, or there's more available through an app or what have you, that enables people to look on their phone perhaps at the greater detail if they're interested in going into it. That's important because the Cultural Institute have now released another publishing option. This is what the dashboard looks like when you're actually in the back end. So you can curate your exhibits and your items, and now you can actually publish mobile apps to the Android store as well. So if you put an exhibition together from beginning to end with images and text and whatever, videos, and you select Publish as Mobile App, that goes through a quick review. It goes through the Cultural Institute's review team, not like Google Play Store head office, so it's much easier to get through. And then the content actually gets downloaded with the app, so it's fully offline and it acts like an actual full online exhibition, but can supplement the experience in a similar sort of way as a tour guide or the Mona O device or something like that, which traditionally would cost many thousands of dollars to implement and now can be done for free using the platform, which is free, and BYO device if you have Android. This is an example. If you have Android, you can look it up. It's already live now. Robben Island Museum. This is kind of what it looks like, some of the preview cards, but you get a bit of a feel for it for experimenting with yourself. I won't waste too much time on that, but just to give you a sense of the options that are available. I wouldn't be a very good audience research manager if I didn't show you some stats. So since launching, we've had something in the vicinity of 3,500 views of the exhibitions. This is just in the last 3 months, in the last 90 days. The average time is about 1 minute 20 on the home page. But then when you get deeper into, sorry, that's for the exhibition, 1 minute 24. And interestingly, what we found in terms of the actual engagement stats is some of the exhibitions you can see lower down in the list, like Awakenings and Leichhardt. Those are exhibitions which were produced by the museum proper and were available already through our online just regular website, and then we adapted them for the Cultural Institute. They're very content heavy. As such, the time for Awakenings, particularly the average time, is around 5 minutes. You get a lot more engagement time, but a lot less views. So, you know, that's 5 minutes on average between 20 people versus 1 minute 24 across almost 3,000 for the Dodd collection. The Dodd collection, Curators of Cool and Essential Design, were non-traditional museum exhibitions in the way that they were curated. So it does imply that there's a new style of curation in terms of how you make engaging content for an online audience as well. And coming back to the idea that audiences can be engaged through this platform, this is an example of the comparison tool of 2 of Van Gogh's Starry Night pieces. Once you save them into your tray down the bottom, you can then compare them side by side. So it does prompt, I guess, a deeper engagement with the content that visitors might not have thought to do. And if you can tell the story through the online exhibition itself, then you can provide people with the tools to interrogate it further or learn a little bit more. Some of the items, individual items that we've had online as well, have been performing particularly well. I think we had around 2,000 views in one day around the 2nd of March when the platform was just launched. And the most popular have been objects from the Dodd collection as well, but that's not surprising. They're incredible images which I'd encourage you to have a look at. They're all online now as well, so that's me. Thank you very much.